Hello and welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. Let's get started and look into our daily quiz. Let's look into the first question. Consider the following statements with respect to cantonment boards. It is created by the central government but administered by the state government. It consists of partly elected and partly nominated members. The elected and nominated members hold office for a term of 5 years. Which of the statements given above are correct? The answer to this is 2 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to the cantonment boards. What are these cantonments? When we speak about military stations, the military stations are the ones which are meant for the use and accommodation of the armed forces. So in the military stations, what you have is the armed forces who are present in that particular region. Then you also have the cantonment areas. The cantonment area houses both the civilian as well as the armed forces. So the military station is where you have the armed forces which are present, then you have the cantonments where you have civilian and the armed forces population. So you require one of the agencies to administer the cantonment area, which is what we have called as the cantonment board. So basically we have the military stations where you only have the armed forces, and you have the cantonments which comprises of both military and civil population. To administer you require an agency. That agency is called as the cantonment board. When we look into the 7th schedule, we have the union list, we also have the state list and the concurrent list. When you look into the entry 3, what does it speak about? It speaks about delimitation of the cantonment areas, local self-government in such areas, the constitution and powers within such areas of the cantonment authorities, and the regulation of the house accommodation. So where is it present? It is present in the union list. So basically, when we speak about the cantonment board, it is established for the municipal administration for civilian population in the cantonment area. And where are the provisions present? It is present in the Cantonments Act of 2006. If you look into the options, it is created by the central government but administered by the state government. This is a wrong statement. Why? Because it is created by the central government, it is in the union list, and also administered by the central government. It is under the administrative control of the defense ministry of the central government. So the first statement is wrong. When we look into the second statement, yes, it consists of partly elected and partly nominated members. So the second statement is right. When we look into the third statement, the elected and nominated members hold office for a term of 5 years. This is a wrong statement. Why? That is because yes, the elected members hold the office for a period of 5 years, but when it comes to the nominated members, they continue so long as they hold the office in that particular station. The executive officer of the cantonment board is appointed by the President of India. These are some of the important facts with respect to the cantonment board. Now let's look into the next practice question. With respect to alopecia areata, which of the following statements are correct? It is a common autoimmune disorder that often results in unpredictable hair loss. This can develop anywhere on the body. The condition can affect anyone regardless of age and gender. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is 1, 2 and 3. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to alopecia, which happens to be a condition causing the hair loss. So what do we understand by this alopecia areata? This is a condition which causes sudden hair losses in patches. Where does it occur? It is not just restricted to the scalp, but it might also impact, let's say for example, the mustache, or it can also impact the beard. It can also impact the underarms as well. So it is not just restricted to the scalp, it can impact every other body part as well. Normally, we have the hair follicles which have the immune privilege. These are not attacked by the body, but in case of alopecia areata, this particular privilege of the body is breached, where the immune system starts attacking the hair follicles. So because the immune system starts attacking the hair follicles, this results in what is called as alopecia. What leads to alopecia areata? It occurs mostly in those type of people who have the family history of autoimmune conditions such as diabetes and thyroid. So when we look into the options, yes, it is a common autoimmune disorder. It results in unpredictable hair loss. This can develop anywhere on the body. So the first and the second statement is right, and the condition can affect anyone regardless of the age and gender. How will it impact the people? It is not a serious medical condition. However, it can cause mental distress, social phobia, anxiety, and depression for those people who are suffering from this particular issue. Now, let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following differences between hard and soft corals are correct? Hard corals secrete calcium based skeletons, soft corals do not. Hard corals are referred to as reef building corals, whereas soft corals do not contribute to reef building activity. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is both. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to the hard corals as well as the soft corals. When we speak about the soft corals, they do not produce the rigid calcium carbonate skeleton and they do not form the reefs as well, although they are part of the reef ecosystem. So remember, they do not have the rigid calcium carbonate, they do not form the reefs, but they might be part of the reef ecosystem. When we speak about the coral communities, they can be found in the shallow water or sometimes even in the deep water as well. Reef building corals prefer usually the clear and the shallow water. They require lot of sunlight as well, and through this sunlight they conduct a symbiotic relationship with the algae. Which ocean basin has the highest number of coral species? The shallow tropical reefs in the Indian and the Pacific Oceans have the most coral species. And as part of the assignment, you have to put on the comment section where are the coral reefs in India. Now the next important factor is in reference to the coral reefs. What are the factors that influence the coral reefs? 1. Extreme climatic conditions, overfishing, coastal development, pollution, as well as sedimentation. These are some of the issues which can harm the coral reefs and ultimately can result in coral bleaching. What are the growth conditions for the coral reef? 1. We require the temperature of water not to be below 20 degrees centigrade. The most favorable temperature for the growth of the coral reefs is about 23 degree to 25 degrees centigrade. Corals can survive only under saline conditions with an average salinity between 27 to 40%. Coral reefs grow better in shallow water having a depth less than 50 meter. The depth of the water should not exceed 200 meters. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements. Right to strike is a fundamental right. Parliament and state legislatures have the power to restrict or abrogate the fundamental rights of members of armed forces. Which of the statements given above are correct? The answer to this is none. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a mention to strike. When we speak about right to strike, this is not a fundamental right in India. So remember, it is not a fundamental right, but instead it is a statutory right. In fact, the judiciary has also said, yes, strike is an integral part of wage bargaining when it comes to the industrial economy, but this is not a fundamental right. It can be a statutory right, and this was confirmed in the case of Kameshwar Prasad versus the state of Bihar, where it clearly pointed out that the right to strike is not a fundamental right. So when you look into the first part of the question, it says right to strike is a fundamental right. This is a wrong statement. When you look into the second part of the question, Parliament and the state legislatures have the power to restrict or abrogate the fundamental rights of members of the armed forces. This is once again a wrong statement. Why? Because such a power is given only to the Parliament and not to the state legislature. Since such a power is not given to the state legislature, second option is wrong. So the answer to this would be none. When we look into Article 33, it says Parliament may by law determine to what extent any of the rights confirmed by this part shall in their application to the members of the armed forces, the members of the forces charged with the maintenance of public order, persons employed in any bureau or other organization established by the state for the purposes of intelligence or counter-intelligence. So what does it speak about? It speaks only about the Parliament. So Parliament has this power, but such a power is not given to the state legislature. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which one of the following is a reason why astronomical distances are measured in light years? Distances among stellar bodies do not change. Gravity of stellar bodies does not change. Light always travels in straight line. Speed of light is always same. The answer to this is speed of light is always same, which happens to be a previous year question from the year 2021. Now let's look into the fact of the day. The fact of the day for today's discussion is microplastics. Why are we discussing this? There was a study by researchers from the Netherlands which had examined blood samples of 22% all anonymous donors and healthy adults, and they found plastic particles in 17 of them. In this particular backdrop, we have to understand what are these microplastics. Microplastics, as the very name denotes, are small plastic particles that are present in the environment. As the very name denotes, it also denotes to those type of plastic particles that measure less than 5 millimeter in length. So remember, microplastics are those which are less than 5 millimeters in length. There are two types of microplastics. One is what is called as the primary microplastic. The other happens to be the secondary microplastic. What is it about the primary microplastics? Those microplastics which are intentionally manufactured to be small, which are used in the personal care products, especially the microbeads, are called as the primary microplastics. What are secondary microplastics? These are not intentionally designed so. Let's take for example, we have a bottle which is left over for, let's say, decades together. This bottle may be broken down into small particles, and when they are broken down for number of decades, this can result into what is called as the microplastic. So when it comes to the primary, it is intentionally designed. When it comes to secondary, it is not intentionally designed, but this happens to get converted into a microplastic because of degradation that has been happening over a number of years. Then what we have is the microbeads. These are the ones which are found in the personal care products, and they are smaller than 1 millimeter. They're designed to remove dry cells from the surface of the skin. They are present in the face washes, toothpaste, cleaning products, so on and so forth. And that is an example which happens in reference to the primary microplastic. What are the concerns with respect to this microplastic? When we speak about the microplastic, we have the water filtration system. The water filtration system will not be able to filter them, and as a result, because they are not able to filter, they enter the water filtration system, and ultimately they pass through it and they are deposited into the ocean as well as the Great Lakes. So what would happen? The water filtration system would not be able to remove them, and ultimately it goes to the oceans, and when it goes to the ocean, it is a major cause of pollution. So the unregulated production and use of microplastic will ultimately enter into the food chain. How? It enters into the food chain because these microplastics are consumed by the fishes. They are also consumed by other species as well, and these fishes are consumed by the human beings. So what would happen? It is not only impacting these species in the aquatic ecosystem, because the humans also consume the fishes. This may ultimately be present in the human digestive system. This is what the article says, where the fish would have consumed the microplastic, and this fish would have been consumed by the human beings, and ultimately it is the human beings who are bound to suffer. There are multiple laws in our country. Let's say for example, the Bureau of Indian Standards has classified the non-biodegradable microbeads as unsafe for the user when it comes to the consumer products. Netherlands was the first country to introduce a ban on microbeads in cosmetic products in 2014. There was another Pacific nation which also became the first country to ban sunscreen that was harmful to the corals and sea life. Which is this country? So please put it on the comment section. Apart from this, countries such as United States of America, Canada have already put in place number of regulations to stop the use of microbeads in the personal care products. So what is the way forward? We as the consumers of a particular product, we will have to take informed decisions while purchasing such products, and at the same time we should look for natural alternatives to that of the international brands. So looking for the natural alternatives is another attempt which we as the consumers of the product will have to take up. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.